Noble Seymour Crippen House is the museum of the Norwood Park Historical Society. At 5624 North Newark in Chicago, it is Chicago's oldest house. We're going to take a tour of the exhibit rooms in the museum. We're here with Susan Kroll, curator of the Museum of the Norwood Park Historical Society. Susan, can you tell us a little bit about the museum and this room in particular?
Sure. This room is something we call exhibit room number 2. It tells the chronology of the history of the development of Norwood Park, starting with its time as a farming community, moving on to its era as an independent village apart from the city of Chicago, followed by the time period after annexation when Norwood Park became a neighborhood of the city of Chicago. Behind me is where we start the story. This wall depicts the farming years. The map on the wall is a portion of an 1851 map of Cook County. On it you can see the Indian land reserves along what is now Milwaukee Avenue and parts of the Cook County Forest Preserves. The Indian boundary line, beyond north of which there were 2 lines. The north line comes south and east of Norwood Park. North of that was where the Native Americans were to live, and the non-Native Americans were to live south of there. The plank roads, early roads before pavement, and the townships. Norwood Park started out most of Norwood Park was in the township of Jefferson. The township of Norwood Park was taken from portions of 4 townships: Jefferson, Maine, Niles, and Leiden. Another interesting set of photos on this wall shows one of our local farms, the Bloom Farm, here shown on threshing day. You can see an entire group of people who are prepared to do the threshing at the farm in an early farm vehicle. At their home and at work in the field. Dickinson Tavern is another local spot. Not so much a tavern, but a place to eat, a restaurant and stop along the way for travelers. Our second major panel describes some of Norwood Park's history during the village years. This is the time period where Norwood Park was an independent suburb. The village was subdivided from a collection of local farms in the mid-1860s. Development started in approximately 1868, 1869. Prior to that, and something that was vitally important to the development and future of Norwood Park, was the arrival of the train. The railroad came to Norwood Park in the mid-1850s. We have several photos of early train stations, one from the 1870s, another from the 1890s, and on another wall, the current train station that was built in 1908 has been restored and is still in use today. The World's Fair of 1893 was a major event in Chicago. One of the ways the local Norwood Park citizens thought they could capitalize on that was to build a hotel near the train station and a short ride away from downtown Chicago. They were hoping to attract tourists. While there were tourists who came, it didn't turn out to be a long-term success. The building was sold and ultimately became what is now called Norwood Crossing, a senior citizen's home. From the top of the hotel, we have several vintage photos from the 1890s, looking to the north at the railroad track and one of the previous train stations. Looking to the south, one can see the water tower, which was used to pump water to citizens in Norwood Park. West Circle Avenue, where today the inside of the circle is the site of Norwood Park School. The current school, built in 1916, is the third Norwood Park school. This view is at Avondale and Raven, and you can see some of the large buildings in the community. Norwood Park School, this is school number 2. It was replaced by the 1916 school that is in use today. This photo shows the very first church built in Norwood Park. It was built in 1871 and is currently the site of the Meditation Center of Chicago. Norwood Park was a complete village. It had a commercial district, including grocery stores, butchers, you name it, clothing stores, as well as an industrial area and homes. One of the commercial areas was along Avondale, another along Nina, and later Northwest Highway. These two images illustrate some of the early Norwood Park commercial buildings. Bob Trieger, who is in this photo, is a legendary Chicago police officer. He operated, he was here in the early 1900s, was well known for knowing pretty much everybody in Norwood Park, meeting the trains, knowing who was coming and going, and who the visitors were, who the residents were, and who to look out for. In this photograph, we have an early 1900s fire engine. It's long before the days of mechanized fire trucks. This was a horse-drawn pumper. This particular photo was taken in 1910 at the fire of the then Norwegian Old People's Home. Okay. On this wall, we have a list of voters from an election taken in 1893. The issue was whether or not the village of Norwood Park would join the city of Chicago. And in fact, the residents of Norwood Park decided to do that. Why, you might ask? The big issues were the availability of water, police protection, and fire protection. So they were looking for basic city services. And at this point in time, the city of Chicago had expanded greatly and was catching up to the village of Norwood Park. As we move to this wall, we see images of Norwood Park as a city neighborhood, beginning with the map of the village of Norwood Park in 1892, just prior to the annexation vote. The election, that annexation vote took place at the local post office, which is depicted in this photo. Along the top row, we have a very nice steam locomotive coming into the train station in 1912. If you look at the fashion, that's really a fun thing to look at. The bowler hat and the ladies in summer clothing. On the far right are two images taken from the top of the water tower. One of them, they're both looking down Avondale Avenue. In the middle, we have another photograph of the train station. Additional photos are of Norwood Park businesses. Some of them are in the Manning Block on Nina Avenue, while others depict Northwest Highway businesses, including the visit of a blimp and a really, really modern event, which is the ribbon cutting of the Kennedy Expressway. As we move to our final wall, we move farther into the 20th century. This aerial photograph from 1932 depicts the Gessner Kennel property at approximately Talcott and Harlem. It was Norwood Park's last farm. The remaining acreage was sold by Ludwig Gessner in the late 1980s. To the right of that is an oil painting of Cicero's barn. Cicero was a very well-known, well-loved African-American gentleman who lived in this place along Northwest Highway and approximately Newark Avenue. He was the local handyman, but is particularly well-loved for giving carriage rides at Christmas time through the snow. And a lot of good stories about that. The lower photographs depict an early 1920s Memorial Day Parade. The Memorial Day Parade started in Norwood Park in 1922. These images actually showcase World War I doughboys marching, along with children who were marching and some of the spectators.
Well, thank you, Sue. That was really fascinating. This is an amazing room, and I learned an awful lot from your presentation. What do you find people are most interested in when they come into this room?
Oh, I think they really like to find themselves in the room. So, for example, on the map, people look for their homes. On what street is their home, and what was it called in 1892? Or, in this photograph, not too many steam engines roll through Norwood Park these days. So being able to see a steam engine is fun, along with the fact that this train station is our current train station, but was pretty brand new in this photograph in 1912. And in these photos, we have aerial photos, images of the neighborhood before it was developed. A lot of people are really interested in seeing, again, where their homes were or might not yet be.
Well, thank you, Sue. Again, we're here with Sue Kroll, curator of the museum at the Norwood Park Historical Society.
Thanks for coming.